Fadi Nassar is U.S. Lebanon Fellow at the Middle East Institute. He joins us now from Beirut. So as we've been talking about, an unprecedented back-to-back series of explosions really seeming to compromise the command center within Hezbollah. Hassan Nasrallah earlier this year telling members of Hezbollah to avoid using cell phones and to go for weaker technology, and that is by the use of walkie-talkies and pagers. And yet we've seen what's happened over the past 24 hours. How much does this compromise and weaken Hamas's command and control system?
Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me and putting a spotlight on an increasingly concerning situation. I believe you're referring to Hezbollah, not Hamas's
I'm sorry, yes,
capabilities.
Hezbollah, yes. Forgive me.
Great. Well, I think it would be helpful to your audience to sort of contextualize this. We're really still piecing together the details, but this already stands as the most significant security breach since Hezbollah and Israel clashed last October. Back then, Hezbollah opened a limited front in support of Hamas. And since then, the two, and to an extension alongside with Iran, have been struggling over a balance of power and the rules of engagement since 2006. Now, this mass attack also comes on the heels of the assassination of a top Hezbollah military leader in Beirut earlier this summer. It does mark a major escalation, and most importantly, it shows that for Israel, there's no going back to October 6th. The massive scale of the attack, with thousands injured and scenes of widespread chaos, powerfully challenges Hezbollah's claim that their response to the Israeli assassination had restored deterrence. Now, something just to hit at the heart of your question is that Israel appears to have gained a considerable advantage in both military and intelligence capabilities, effectively showcasing its ability to escalate the conflict and penetrate Hezbollah's defenses with increasing precision.
You're right about the fact that Hezbollah has, of course, taken a beating over the past year or so. I mean, obviously, we talked about the assassination of that Hezbollah commander that happened a few months ago. We're still actually waiting, we were talking about this yesterday, for Iran to respond to the assassination of Hania as well. But just in terms of where Hezbollah goes from here, how did they respond to this? We do know that Hassan Nasrallah is going to be speaking tomorrow. He's taken a cautious approach in the past. What do you expect him to say in response to this level of humiliation, for lack of a better word?
Look, you ask the question that's really on everyone's mind. Where are we going from here? And are we heading towards a full-scale war between Israel and Hezbollah? Now, it's really hard to say exactly what will happen next. After all, very few of us are in the rooms where such critical decisions of war and peace are made. But here's what I would have your audience sort of impress on them. One thing is certain. The millions of everyday people who will be most affected by this situation have no say in the decisions that will dramatically alter their lives. They'll be watching that speech like you and me.
In terms of Israel attempting to reestablish deterrence, do you think they've been able to do that thus far, assuming this operation is over? Because that's where we were yesterday, thinking it was a one-time thing, an operation, again, noting how unprecedented this has been. Now we've seen it go into day two, and the question is, where does it go from here? Has deterrence been reestablished from Israel's point of view at this today?
Right. You ask an important question. I think it's very clear from the series of attacks, whether it was the earlier assassination, whether it's high-level assassinations, whether it's the mass-scale attack we saw yesterday, or today, another wave of blasts, although I do caution your audience to wait till all the information is verified as the story. Look, one is clear. Israel's military superiority is increasingly apparent, as is its willingness to cross previous red lines through attacks of such scale. All of this underscores that it's really in control over the escalation ladder that could reshape a wider regional balance of power.
Israel has said quite a few times that one of their key priorities in this war is to ensure that Israelis who have been forced to evacuate from northern Israel are able to go home again. When you think about what's happening now in terms of these back-to-back attacks on the communication network of Hezbollah, obviously we know that Hezbollah is going to retaliate. We don't yet know how, but we know that they simply cannot do nothing. I mean, is this really the right way for Israel to achieve its goal? I mean, surely it's going to have the opposite impact.
You know, as I said, and I do caution this, I think it's always great to practice, at least on my end, some humility. Very few of us are in the war rooms where those decisions are made. One thing, however, is clear, and I would stress this, those civilians, millions of civilians, whether we're talking about in Israel, in Lebanon, or across the region, are waiting, holding their breath for what comes next. And the reality is very few of us will have those answers.
You're absolutely right to point that out and to caution some humility on all of our sides, right, as we're watching this unfold. But let me ask you about the pressure internally on Hezbollah within Lebanon itself, because Hassan Nasrallah surely knows the weight of the Lebanese people and their concern of not wanting to repeat what we saw the last major war between Israel and Hezbollah, and that was in 2006, and the damage that was inflicted upon Lebanon, the numbers of people that were killed, the damage to the economy. Now seeing what's unfolded in the last 2 days in Lebanon, throughout the country, how much pressure is there on Nasrallah specifically not to overreact and escalate even further this conflict with Israel, perhaps even opening the door then to a third major war between the two sides?
You ask a tough question, and it's an important question. You know, I can imagine that Hezbollah must face, and many questions, a lot of pressure will come up. If Hezbollah cannot defend itself and its own operatives, how can it claim to safeguard Lebanon? And if it has failed to deter Israel, as it continues to claim it has, what does this mean? The vast majority of Lebanese do not aspire for conflict. But are they heading down this road ever since Hezbollah opened a limited front in its support of Hamas and a wider war with Israel?
Well, we'll continue to follow these developments closely. Fadi, Nicholas, Nassar, thank you so much.